Has Bernie Sanders moved Joe left? This is a new article from The Guardian, and I'll read the headline. Has Bernie Sanders really helped Joe Biden move further left? Now, before I answer the question, I'm going to get all of you in the comments to answer this question. Um, and I thank you for all the super chats I'm getting. I'm going to save all of those to the end. Answer this question though. Do you think Bernie Sanders has moved Joe Biden left? And if you do think he has, name what it is. So if it's like, we moved Joe Biden left on student loan reform, student loan forgiveness, I'm sorry. If we move Joe Biden left on whatever the other thing is. Before I get into the article, I'm curious to know if anybody thinks that. If you don't think he has moved them left, just say Bernie hasn't moved him left, and I'll put that up. Bernie has not moved him left, or some variation of that, and I'll put your comments up. Right now, at the top of the hour, 5 p.m. is 5:05 Eastern, 2 p.m. where I am. Thank you for those that are watching. And now let's get to the comments. I was just buying time to get comments here. All right. Bernie gave him. I'm not sure. Bernie has moved right. Bernie has moved right. NATO left. Answered the question and said, no, Bern votes for all the Ukraine funding. So I think that speaks to a lot of the comments of saying Bernie Sanders moved right. Bernie won't even travel through the left wing of the White House. That's funny. That's funny. That's funny. Bernie has joined the right wing with the rest of the Democrats. To answer the question, no, Biden has moved Bernie to the right. And I would say that's a correct assessment. Bernie did not move Joe left. Joe moved him to the right. Bryce just answered the question. Nope. If anything, Bernie moved more right wing. So it seems like a lot of us are on the same page. Oops, this one. Bernie went right. That's an interesting thing. We should make a poll. Maybe we should construct a poll for later. Bernie left us on the scene. Let me see. Bernie bent the knee in 2016. Any other ones? Bernie pretending to be left at first, but the opposite happened. Bernie couldn't move a soccer ball left at this point. Bernie is a clown. Not even a little. Joe moved Bernie towards the right. So it feels like a lot of us are on the same page when we're talking about whether or not, and I'll give you my assessment. Absolutely not. I mean, because Bernie Sanders and other progressives chooses to team up with the Democratic Party, when the Democratic Party moves right, they have to move right with them. Otherwise, they're out of step with them, and they're out. You know, they're put out of the kitchen, sort of. They're put out of the hall, the dinner hall. They're on the outside looking through the window, and they don't want to do that. This is why Bernie Sanders is so for NATO funding. This is why some progressives are now fine with voting for the Iron Dome, and several votes breaking a union strike. You have to do that if you're teaming up. Just think, would AOC have to break a union strike in the squad if they weren't part of the Democratic Party? Wouldn't the answer be no? They wouldn't have to. So let's go into the article and see what they say. And I think this was written a couple of days ago. Again, this is on The Guardian. It's in the description box. The link to this article is in the description box. The senator's relationship with Biden has proven constructive. with an ambitious agenda, but some Sanders aides and supporters offer a mixed verdict. So just from that, it sounds like they're about to try to walk this line and act like he has done some good. Is what it sounds like to me. And this is by David Smith in Washington. I'm not sure why it says in Washington. Something I don't know. But this was written on the 27th. Um, and let me see if I can make this bigger. I could make it extra big for those watching on your phone. You can almost read along. I want to make it that big for you to be able to see. So let's go into this question even further and reading this article here. Oops, let me make sure everything looks good. Okay. The band played on the road again. The New York studio audience chanted, quote, Bernie, 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 end quote. Senator Sanders was making his 16th appearance on CBS's The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, trying the record set by comedian John Oliver. Colbert confronted his guest with a card bearing a provocative headline. Joe Biden is Bernie Sanders, end quote, from a Wall Street Journal column that argued the president was effectively be running for a re-election as a Democratic socialist. The host as Sanders, was this news to you? And that is Biden, because it says Joe Biden is Bernie Sanders. Of course he's not. Bernie Sanders is not even Bernie Sanders. With a hearty laugh, Sanders, 81, recalled that after the 2020 Democratic primary, his team and Biden had joined forces to produce an agenda for working families. They did not agree on everything, but put together probably the most progressive outline that any president had introduced since FDR. A reference to Franklin Delano Roosevelt New Deal in the 1920s. So Bernie Sanders is running cover for Joe Biden being a progressive candidate so that we can squash any sort of left candidate or any candidate to his left. You notice AOC and all these in progressive, Pramila Jayapal. Oh yeah, his State of the Union sound progressive. Now Bernie Sanders is coming out saying that they crafted some sort of progressive agenda that was executed. Why are they doing this now? It's to stave off progressive challengers. Let's continue. Oh, I'm down here. Nearly 8 years have passed since Sanders, an independent senator from Vermont, launched his first run for U.S. president. The economic populist outsider rocked the establishment as he mounted a fierce challenge to frontrunner Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primary. Sanders lost, but put issues such as class inequality, universal health care, and the negative effects of globalization in the mainstream political discourse. This is why we don't need Marianne Williamson running again, because it's already there. He's already put it in the discourse. 4 years later, Sanders ran and lost again. But whereas the battle with Clinton had turned bitter, their mutual apathy palpable, the relationship with Biden proved constructive. Has it? The president included progressive voices in his administration and, along with his chief of staff, Ron Klain, committed to keeping the door open to Sanders and his allies. So we have articles like this and outfits like everybody knows the Guardian is the PMC is slightly to the left of Jacobin. Jacobin is liberal straight up and down. Progressive. So these are progressive sort of entities that are putting out these nonsense. So that's why this is so favorable to Joe Biden and this push to try to act like Bernie Sanders accomplished something. The upshot, now back to the article for those listening, the upshot has been an agenda more ambitious in scope and scale than many imagined, and a Democratic president working more closely with progressives than Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama did. I mean, this sentence is complete nonsense. Complete nonsense. The upshot has been an agenda more ambitious in scope and scale than many imagined, and a Democratic president working more closely with progressives than Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama did. And Bernie Sanders is fine with being used as a shield to shield Joe Biden, the neoliberal. But Sanders' aides, alums, and supporters interviewed by The Guardian offered a mixed verdict, welcoming Biden's faith in government to deliver, a repudiation of Ronald Reagan's trickle-down economics, while expressing frustration over setbacks on healthcare, progressive taxation, and other issues. Few dispute that Biden and Sanders share an authenticity and do not come over as polished, scripted, or elitist. Faz Shakir, chief political advisor to Sanders, recalls that during the 2020 campaign, many Sanders voters said Biden was their second choice and vice versa. Just retelling history here. Biden was not, well, they didn't say that. Many Sanders voters, okay, many. So they're not saying the majority of Sanders voted said that Biden was their second, and they're not saying the majority of Biden voters, because that would be an overstatement. If you're just saying some, okay, yeah, there was some. Could have been single digit overlapping. I guess there could be some. But let's continue. Quote, Biden has a kind of plain speak about him, he said. Quote, that is also the style of Bernie Sanders to relate with a working class person. Not to suggest that I know more and I'm super smarter than you, which occasionally does happen from the people who have more advanced degrees, become schooled in technocratic talk and start using various abbreviations for government agencies. After Biden won the nomination, the president and Sanders appointed 6 joint task force that came up with a 110-page policy document. Secure described Biden's team as a pleasure to work with and said he would move in a progressive direction both during the campaign and as president. So this is again retelling the history of this panel, this joint task force that accomplished zero. Just a retelling of a story in order to craft this narrative that Joe Biden is now some sort of progressive. And to the point to where even some people over at the Majority Report, I've even heard out of Emma's mouth talking about how Joe Biden is some sort of progressive. Now that Bernie Sanders is saying it. They follow Bernie Sanders lockstep so closely, and you can tell in their policy positions. Let's continue with the article. Now 80, Biden was long perceived as centrist and moderate, who would not challenge the status quo. He represented Delaware for 36 years in the U.S. Senate and served as Barack Obama's vice president. He has made much of his belief in bipartisanship and still speaks warmly of Mitch McConnell, the Republican majority leader in the Senate, who has thwarted many liberal dreams. But he is his friend. Yet with a gossamer thin majority in Congress, Biden has also pulled off 4 big wins worth trillions of dollars: COVID relief, a sweeping infrastructure law, and massive boost to domestic production of computer chips, and biggest climate law in history. So the Guardian is also going to pretend like the Biden administration is doing something effectively or doing something substantially or anything to help climate change. That's what we're doing at the Guardian now. He won further goodwill on the left by withdrawing U.S. forces from Afghanistan to end America's longest war. Why is the Guardian leaving out that he's starving those people? This article is astonishing. The professional managerial class over at the Guardian, boy. Let's try to move. Let's try to push forward though. Shakar identifies 2 major influences. First, Sanders' insurgents campaign in 2016 and 2020 built a mass movement that attracted millions. Quote, Biden was not clueless as to the need to make sure that if he was going to win, he needed all those people in his tent, and he's been a good coalition builder in that regard, end quote. So even Shakar, I think that's what you say his name, is participating in this rewriting of history and this covering of Bernie Sanders. of Joe Biden and the shifting of the Overton window. Bernie Sanders, oh my God. It's just truly astonishing to me. Let's continue. Then there was an accident of history, an opportunity in crisis. Quote, when COVID came along, it was just affirmed that to the extent that we needed government solutions to address crises in America. They needed to be progressive. The politics changed in a big way, such that people were needing and desiring and wanting government action. As a result, he's been able to pass a bunch of legislation that shows government is going to be a very big, strong actor on the scene in a way that hasn't been seen in decades. Oh my God. I'm a little caught off guard about this, because this line that Joe Biden is progressive is literally new. This is literally new since the State of the Union. This is the NATO left, man. They just never cease to amaze you. Adam Green, co-founder of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee and ally of Senator Elizabeth Warren, agrees, quote, the COVID crisis gave Joe Biden a permission structure to think bigger and a bit differently than he did his entire political career, and made him more open to fully baked progressive solutions that had been worked on for years and were very fitting in for the movement. Are they now trying to act like Joe Biden did something good with COVID? What is happening here, people? Let me go to comments. This feels like the Twilight Zone. This feels like Bizarro World. What are they talking about here? Let me see. This is why we need to let terms like liberal and progressive and woke go. They mean nothing now, as they've been totally hijacked. You can tell when Joe is knowingly lying because he prefaces it with, I'm not lying. The NATO left, ha. I can't believe the retelling, Shakir, Bernie Sanders' former political advisor, is participating in it. Majority Report and Emma is participating in it. Of course, you got corporate media participating in it, and now you have the Guardian all trying to act, and Bernie Sanders trying to act like Joe Biden did anything or was anything that resembles being progressive. Astonishing and surprising for me. I don't. Maybe some of you are not surprised, but this is absolutely surprising to me. TJ, what he is saying is that because of COVID, Biden had some revelation and became more open to leftist policy, which is a crack of shit. Oh my God. Thank you for breaking that down for me. But that is just nonsense. Let's read a couple more quotes and close this out here. This is just nonsense. Quote, the idea of helping workers and helping businesses keep workers, the idea of helping parents take care of their kids, the various solutions that were passed in reaction to the crisis were not made up on the fly. They had been percolating for years among progressives and ended up setting the tone for Joe Biden's entire presidency. And I'm going to vomit right now. I'm vomiting right now. As the party has shifted left, Biden, an old school pragmatist, was willing to shift with it. I'm vomiting right now. I'm vomiting in my mouth right now. Last year, he announced a plan for student loan forgiveness that was a sham from the start. He has pledged to take on corporate greed and malfeasance, like the Democratic Party voting to keep dark money in their primaries. Stand with workers at Amazon and everywhere and revive American manufacturing in left behind communities. Does this include voting to break a strike? What kind of shit is this? Truly amazing. This is written by David Smith in Washington, and you need to come out to Washington if this is what you write and stand in Washington. Wow.